step into our stage one block. Jim, what goes into building one of our stage ones?
Stage one is actually based off of stock production components other than the pistons themselves, which are known to break in normal use. We do take the parts such as the crank rods and block, and we do QC those. The block does get honed for a 99.5 drop-in piston of our own design with JE, uses stock OE rod and crank, which are QC'd and to our blueprint specs before final assembly.
Now, what's the difference between our stage one piston that we use versus a stock piston?
The stock piston is a cast piston. It's designed for street use to run for 200,000 miles. Is without any troubles, but
at stock power levels.
At stock power levels, obviously we're in the performance world, and we start exceeding design, which leads to traditional crack ring lands.
Okay.
And so we've come up with a piston as a replacement at the same stock bore size.
I'm guessing still the stock rod is strong enough to handle our power levels that we're going to output with a stage one block.
That's correct. There's no reason to change it at this level as far as the design goals for the stage one.
Okay. For the stock rod, is that a cast material? Is that what differs from then stepping up for our stage two?
While it looks cast, it is actually a forging, as are most OE stock rods. It's a very cost-effective, strong rod for its intended use.
Yeah, I mean, comparing it to what would go into our stage two, it does look like it has thicker material, but obviously not as wide of a rod.
That's correct. We have an I-beam, is what the stock connecting rod shape is,
okay,
which is easy to make, versus the H-beam, which is harder and requires more machining to make.
Okay.
Yet that the H-beam design is stronger by design. So
okay,
when we start exceeding the power levels of the OE I-beam type rod, which you can see, very small overall compared
yes,
to the H-beam that we
okay,
use.
H-beam and I-beam, how come some people say I-beams are better or H-beams are better?
Okay, and this applies not only with the OE rod versus even in the I-beams that we use in our stage 3 and above short blocks. The I-beam is a stronger rod when it comes to its running compression loads, whereas
okay,
the H-beam is very strong as far as high torque, low RPM. Problem with the H-beam rod is when we start putting serious horsepower to it, is the flanges here will actually start to bow out.
Okay.
And then you have some issues with the shape around the small end and its strength, because you look at it this way, it looks strong, but maximum in-cylinder pressure is really here, so you can see what it's doing here, and that's why you'll see pictures of motors that are blown up. You say, hey, this rod just folded. Well, that's why.
Okay.
Compared to the I-beam style rod, which now it's thicker in areas that resist bending.
Okay.
It has better support at the wrist pin. And we'll see more of that when we get into the stage 3 and higher.
And we're running our stage one with a factory OE crank?
That's correct.
Anything special about the one that we use?
It's a forged nitrided crank, so it's going through a surface hardening process. It's actually a great crank for what we do, and we still use that in we've actually used it in stage 4 short blocks in the past.
Okay.
And before we switched over to the billet cranks, and it's a economical piece that performs very, very well.
Okay, nice. Okay. Rod bearings and obviously main bearings, what are we recommending and what are we using here?
We use ACL brand, they're race series bearings. They come in various thicknesses, H and HX that everybody's familiar with. ACL for us packages the bearings in flats of bearings rather than in box sets. That way we actually take the bearings and we actually go through them and essentially grade them ourselves as far as their thickness, so that we have total control over our final bearing clearances based on our connecting rod and crankshaft dimensions.
Okay, great. And that's, I guess, something that differs from somebody. Obviously, hey, I want you to build me a short block. Here's my set of rods, set of bearings. We have full control over what measurements and which ones we're going to pair together.
That's correct. But it's also as economical for us in that we're not, purchasing and opening multiple sets of bearings trying to find the sizes that, meet, our criteria for clearances.
Okay. For our stage 1, we're still running OE case bolts?
Yeah, so OE case bolts, perfectly fine. We do put new ones in.
Okay.
Obviously, while we're, prepping the block, final assembly, new, OE bolts are used,
Okay.
as we consider them a one-time use only.
Okay. And then what about head studs for stage one?
There we used the ARP brand head stud kit in the stock 11 millimeter size, which
Okay.
is perfectly adequate
Okay.
for this level.
For our stage one, what kind of power level are we looking at that it can handle?
Stage one is rated to 500 brake horsepower. We
Okay.
have tested this and the combination of parts and how we arrived at this combination, to provide value and performance.
I can roll.
Someone that's looking at a stage one, what should they really be using that for? Should that just be kind of like a quick replacement to get you back on the road, or?
Yeah, the stage one is a nice combination where if you're in a position where you need to get your car going, you use it as a daily driver, yet you're looking at a performance standpoint and want to add other things, up to the horsepower limit that we rate the short block. It's a nice economical way to get going, yet have a path to
Okay.
grow without having to start over.
Okay. So that probably would have been a good choice for me. I mean, I only was running a Cobb stage 2 map on my car, turbo back exhaust, intake, and a few other little mods here and there, but nothing crazy. I think I was making 312 horsepower or something like that.
Exactly, and that's also the basis of, that's enough mods to start breaking stock pistons. So
Okay.
here we
Okay.
go with the parts combination that's economical and makes sense.
All right, so I have a few questions that you guys have asked. So we're just going to go ahead and shoot a couple of them off at Jim. Jim, if someone orders a stage one block and they order a oil pump, pickup, and pan, does that come assembled onto the short block already, or is it separate?
Those items are separate. The short blocks, as we finish manufacturing and assembly, are specially packaged in their own boxes for shipping so that they arrive safely. And these other parts are packaged separately and are up to the customer or
Okay.
their shop to install.
Gotcha. Okay. And the short block does come fully assembled.
Yes, it is fully assembled. It has packet of information attached to it with break-in instructions of where to find those and other recommendations.
Which is probably very important to read.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like anything else that comes with instructions. You do need to read these.
Great. So we recommend that you read through the pamphlet from top to bottom. The stage one block work on a stock ECU.
Yes, no problem running on a stock ECU. Obviously, you've done other things to your car, then you'll also need to modify your tune for that. But this is the intention of this.
Okay. So if I had a fully stock car, needed a new motor, I could pull that out, drop this in, and once I get it running, turn the key and go.
That's correct.
Okay. Next thing we've been asked, can our 2.5 liter blocks work with 02 to 05 WRX 2 liter heads?
Yes, is the cylinder head combustion chambers need to be modified as far as the difference to correct the compression ratio between those.
Okay, so it's not a quick just I can bolt them on and we can go.
No, we do have another short block offering that does take care of that.
Yeah, baby, yeah!